Well, welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we're going to jump back into our volume 1 by Julia Kent, which is going to be the second half of books 3 to 5, the review for Shopping for a Billionaire. We pick up a day after Easter, and she's going to do a mystery shop at the credit union with her best friend as well as coworker Amanda. So Amanda's been out of town at this convention. So she gets Amanda all caught up on all the great sex, the fun, everything she's been having with our boy Declan. We also find out that Steve has also been constantly texting her, calling her, and he even had some hashtags going on Twitter again about, free hashtag free Shannon, hashtag billionaire aggression, like crazy stuff. So eventually he took those down, more than likely because it probably didn't make him look too great with his business associates. That's probably not the smartest thing to do to if you're trying to be in the room with billionaires and, millionaires, right? So as they're talking, she gets a text message from Steve saying, hey, can we just have dinner again and not be interrupted? And for some silly reason, she says okay to get him to stop. But I'm like, no. You just need to keep telling him no. Or you tell him, well, because you shouldn't have to keep saying no. I tell you no, you leave me alone, right? That's how it should be. But if you've told him no, it's not working, that's when I would message back, please stop. Or I'm going to have to get an order of protection against you for harassment. Like, that's what you would have to do with somebody like that, because he does treasure his reputation above anything, right? So I think that's what she should have did, not just give in, because it's almost like, not almost like, it's, he knows if I keep at her, I can break her, and she just proved him right. He keeps bothering her, and she decides, okay, I'll do it. Ugh, I don't like it. So they go into the credit union. The purpose is to make sure there is no issues between, like, how do I say this? If you're heterosexual or if you are a gay couple, that there's no type of disparages within how you get your loan, right? What they ask you for, what they approve you for, that whole thing. So they go into this guy, and he hasn't said anything out of line. He did ask them, when did they get married? And they said 2 weeks ago. And they were like, do we need to show you our marriage certificate? And he was like, oh, no, 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 because apparently that is illegal for them to ask for that. So he passed. So then Steve's mother pops up. Her name is Monica. Now, the good thing is with this mystery shop, Shannon did use her first name. The last name is different. So when Monica goes Shannon, it's not like it's some completely different name. So that's a good thing. However, now they've got to convince this woman as well that they're together. So we'll see if they can pull it off. So Steve's mom, Monica, she gives Shannon this fake hug. They have this whole back and forth. We find out that this is shocking to her because the woman never really liked her. So she's kind of like, I don't even know why she's hugging me. So then, of course, the digs start coming from Monica. And she, it's like, once it's revealed that she's married, that she's saying she's married to Amanda, Monica's like, oh, so that's why it didn't work out with Steve. You know, there was nothing he could do with you. She's just going in. And she winds up, I think it was Amanda blurts out about they're going to have this big shindig at Farmington Country Club. And Farmington doesn't allow same-sex marriage. And so Monica's just kind of like, you can't do that. And so The gym guy, who they're having the mortgage, the interview with, the broker, he goes, well, why can't they? And Monica never says why they can't. She just kind of alluded to the fact of why. And this makes the gym guy kind of go, well, you need to leave. We need to start, completing this process so these two can start living their lives together. And so they go in and they clearly are going to give him a high score for this mystery shop because there wasn't any form of discrimination. So the next day, Amy comes home and she's like, oh my gosh, some stuff's going down. So Amanda comes over as well, and this is what has happened. Shannon has about 157 messages on Twitter. Monica apparently told Steve. Steve told Jessica and Coffin, and Jessica has tweeted and said that Shannon, was using Declan. Now, Shannon did not make that statement, okay? Amanda actually said that she was using Declan for business needs, okay? But now it's been put out there. And so at first she's like, it's not real life X, Y, and Z. But as she's looking, she's noticing, no, this shit's huge. And she realizes there's no type of messaging, no phone calls, nothing from Declan. Now that's what scares her. And then we find out that they have to go and meet the McCormicks because they have a meeting at Interdeck. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be teen too much. Poor girl. Shannon, of course, is having a complete meltdown. Amanda is getting peed on her shoes by Chuckles the cat. So Chuckles, she was wearing some gladiator sandals. And I guess when you wear things with straps like that, Chuckles pees on them. Well, we find out when the mom comes over, her mom Marie, she's played the sex game with their dad. And it's some type of, I don't know, something where she's tied up and a kraken's got her and she's got on these type of sandals. And so I guess ever since then, the cat started peeing on like sandals with these straps on them. I said, that Mama Marie, she is a freak, but shout out to her because I like that she tries to keep it interesting with her husband. She's not like, oh, I don't want to do it. She's very much like, if it's new, let's try it. I respect that. So anyway, Amanda is like, well, message Declan, right? See if maybe he'll say something to you. So she messages him and he doesn't say anything right away. And she's freaking out because they've got to go meet them in a few hours. So she is very much freaking out. And Greg also wants them to get there a little earlier for the meeting so he can go over some strategies with them. Apparently, the hotel chains that are under the Interdeck umbrella, they haven't been doing the best the past 2 years. And so apparently they're going to want someone to go in and evaluate them. And they're doing this back and forth. She finally gets a phone buzz from Declan. And all it says is, we'll talk. Poor girl just spirals. She just spirals after that. Amanda drives them to the meeting. She's got 1,000 thoughts going through her mind, our girl Shannon. When they get to the meeting, Declan isn't there at first. It's just James and Andrew. And so when Declan does come in, you can feel the coldness. And he apparently was at a business meeting, and they kind of allude to the fact that the business meeting was probably like a strip club or something like that. And he just kind of says, as long as you're in the business, the longer you're in the business, you have to do what you have to do to please your clients. And she, of course, is like, Shannon is like, is that expected of a female vice president? Well, why, I'm just saying, why wouldn't it be? If we gonna do equal, right? And this is where they want to go, then that's where you gonna go too. It can't, you, let's not do this. Well, I'm a female, so I shouldn't have to do that. No, don't play those games. You know, because to me that goes against the whole thing of being a feminist. You want to do the same, right? So if you want to step into a managerial type of a role, a high level one, let's say an executive role. I don't like managerial. I like executive. If you want to step into an executive role, there are going to be things that are going to be required of you. And if your client likes to do business in a strip club, guess where you're going to go? To a strip club. Because you can't lose, you don't want to lose the business, right? So the father says, yeah, that would be. We also find out the father knows that they were messing around in the helicopter. I guess the pilot told him. And he also knows about the whole story blowing up on social media about her being, gay and using Declan for business. He calls it Twitterlicious, honey. He doesn't say Twitter. He says Twitterlicious. I lost it. So he knows that the story of her being gay, he's like, I know it's false, based on what he's heard from the pilot and everything. But he tells her that will make you a perfect candidate since you were able to hold your cover so well. You'll be perfect for corporate espionage. So this is what James wants her to do. He wants her to not only evaluate his hotels, but to also evaluate his competition. He sees it as a win-win. I do as well. That makes perfect sense. You need to know what you're doing wrong. You need to know what your competition is doing wrong, as well as what they're doing right. You need to know it. So that's smart. She's upset because Declan's being cold to her. Amanda wants to know why wasn't she considered for this evaluation as well. And the guy said, oh, James is like, don't worry. You'll do it in about 3 months as well. So then the Andrew guy wanted to know if Amanda was gay because he clearly likes her. And so he blatantly asked, and they're like, you can't ask her that. He's like, shoot, he needs to know. Shannon asks to speak with Declan outside. They go outside, they have it out. Basically, he's not upset because people, are saying that she's gay. He knows she's not gay. He said the problem is that he feels like she was just using him to close the deal. And he feels like he doesn't know who the real Shannon is. Is it, the one who needs the constant validation? Is it the one who's manipulating because she's trying to stay in character? Like, which one is it? And he dumped her. He told her he couldn't do it anymore. She thought it was because of her size. And, his reasoning, it had nothing to do with that. He said he just can't keep up with who she is. She never really let him in. And he says, so she just, she decides, enough of this. Like, she got dumped by Steve because she wouldn't conform to him. She shows herself to this other person, and now they're saying they can't figure out if I'm real or not. And she just decided, she gives up. She's like, screw it. You know what? You win. She's like, because she had offered him, like, she had asked him out on like a coffee date to like sit down and have a real conversation before he said all this stuff. And after that, she said, I rescind the offer. You don't have to worry about me anymore. You have a great life. And I'm not mad at her for that because I didn't want her to sit there and beg. I am proud of her for that. She does mystery shopping for a living. She can't break, we'll call it character, right? Because that could be termination. So she can't do that. So the very thing that made you, of how you met her, right? Doing a mystery shop and then getting to know her afterwards, why are you saying you can't tell what's real and what's not? Like, I just feel like that's a cop out. It's a real cop out. And I don't know. He just kind of irked me with that. It wasn't a good enough reason. It felt like he was pulling it out of his ass. And that just means you're trying to figure out a reason to tell me no, or not be with me. Then you just don't want to be with me. That's cool. You know what I mean? But it upset her, of course. She was hurt. But I love that she didn't like burst out crying in front of him. It was just kind of like, you know what? Fuck this. I will go deal with my pain and I'll leave you alone. Because clearly I can't have a real conversation with you. You know? You don't want a conversation with me. So it's been a few days. She's not, how do I say it? Normally, when the last time she got dumped by Steve, she very much was about eating her feelings. And this time around, girl don't even have an appetite. So she's fucked up for real. This is really getting to her. She's been able to work from home, thankfully, because they've got a lot of new people that have applied to the mystery shopping thing. And so all she has to do is handle reports and things like that. So we find out her mom has applied to be a mystery shopper as well and's gotten certified. So Amanda and Amy both tell her, you know, Shannon, you need to bathe, like, 'cause she's stinking, you know? They're like, it's time for you to get yourself together a little bit. We get that you're hurt. We understand it. But you stink. And of course, for her, the realization that she'll never touch him just makes her break down and cry again. Just poor thing. So the end of the week, it's what, Friday. She goes to her mother's yoga class. There's a fire marshal there. So someone's called saying that they were over capacity. But what it was is the Agnes woman, she wanted to be able to stand right behind Declan. So she called them, the fire marshal, so she could get a prime spot. I said, that is so crazy. But anyway, her mom, of course, comes over. Where's Declan? And she says he's not coming. She's like, what happened? She says, we broke up. She's fighting back tears. Her mother's like, what do you mean? Like, why would you break up with a billionaire? Floodgates unleashed. She just starts crying. So everyone comes over. They're talking to her. Marie does know about the whole thing of her remaining in character at the mystery shop, saying that, she was a lesbian. And her mom hates that job anyway. So for her mom, it's like, I told you to, like, let go of that job. Look at it, it's destroying your life, And then it turns into a different conversation, and the different women are giving their advice. One woman said, well, if you're a lesbian, just have your girlfriend do a threesome with them. Like, they're coming with all kind of stuff. So then we find out that Marie and her dad, that they apparently tried to have a threesome. They were about to go and do it, but Jason chickened out. And I'm like, so did Marie not do it? But I feel like Marie went and did it, because that's just who she is. And so we also find out that they bought a sex doll and Jason's had sex with it. Yeah, a lot of information was coming out at this yoga class. And she's just so hurt, so distracted. Thankfully, those other stories did kind of pull her out of, that complete, sadness that she was in. But however, it was like she did not need to know her dad was banging a sex doll, because that's a memory she is never going to be able to get out of her head. After class, her mother and her go to the ice cream shop, and she's got like some chocolate caramel marshmallow concoction, and she has another good cry with her mom. Her mom does apologize. Her mom is like, she's sorry, which her mom doesn't say too often. Okay. So that was nice to hear. And while she's crying on her mother's shoulder, her mother says, like father, like son. And she says, wait a minute, what was that? So eventually she does pull it out of her. So when she was a paint stripper, which is someone who strips the paint from canvases. She lived in this warehouse. It was like very bohemian, all the artists and stuff, very avant garde, that type of thing. They lived in this warehouse. And she was like, why have I never heard this story? And Shannon also is like, so you knew who he was? And she's like, anyway, I was in my early 20s in Boston, and she dated James. He was a little older, about 7 years older than her. Shannon is beyond flabbergasted, right? And she again is like, so you dated my boyfriend's dad? And Marie goes, your ex-boyfriend, honey. Ex-boyfriend. And then someone goes, did you ring? And she was hoping it was Declan, but no. It's fucking Steve. So Steve walks up and he's like pretty much trying to say, you know, that he misses her and that she misses him, all this type of stuff. And Shannon's like, no, I don't. Why are you here? Like, you're a stalker at this point, you know? And the mom just annihilates Steve. I mean, Marie went in on his ass. And Marie was like, how could you know if she was gay or not? How could you know? Does her vagina say that it's gay? You know? She's like, and you probably weren't even that good in bed. I mean, she was just going off on him. And I was happy because like, Shannon is in a very vulnerable place, and she needed a guard dog at that moment, and her mom was that guard dog. Because Steve is clearly stalking her. He shouldn't. Whoa, no, because he knows her. He knows when her mom has classes. He knows everything. So he's a fucking stalker. And it's like, she's not reaching out to you. She doesn't want to deal with you, and you just won't let her go. So when she doesn't give him any attention, that's when he wants her. I hate people like that. That is the most pitiful thing that guys can do, is try and give you so much attention once you've decided, I really don't give a fuck about you anymore. Now they want to be at your beck and call. No, leave me alone. I'm good. You know? It's so annoying. So that's why Steve gets on my nerves, because he's like a reminder of the annoying exes I've had. Where it's like, you just go away. But anyway, I digress. Shout out to Marie. She called him, of course, egotistical, just an asshole. She went at it. He tells them that he didn't feed Jessica that story, nor did Monica. They don't even talk to each other. They're not on good terms. So he thinks the story came from somewhere else. I don't know. He doesn't seem very truthful, so I doubt it. But he says it was someone else. We'll go on with it, but I don't believe it. I believe he did it. I believe his mom ran and told him after she was at that bank. That is what I believe happened. So then Shannon has this intense sex dream about Declan. It's the third one in the last 3 days. She wakes up all hot and heavy. She's got to go in a mystery shop today. It's to a sex shop in a place called Northampton, which is like 2 hours away from where she is. Amanda gave her this one, and she's going to have to do it with her mother. So Marie goes with Amanda sometimes on her mystery shops, and they switched off on this one because Amanda threatened to tell Marie about the time that Rachel Ray had something and Shannon had tickets to it, and because she didn't want to take her mom, she lied and said that it was canceled. And Marie absolutely loves Rachel Ray, so she could never let her mom know that she did that shit. So they're in the turd mobile. They're driving. People, of course, are saying things to them. They go and get coffee, and then she sees Jessica and Declan together, and she sees white rage. So she winds up ramming the car into a trash can because she wasn't paying attention. The windows are down, so garbage gets all over her. It's like, ugh. So she gets this pitying look from Declan. Jessica's, of course, she's laughing. It's just bad. So the mom's like, okay, yeah, we got to get out of here. I felt bad for her, but at the same time, I don't know if Declan is with Jessica, if this was something else. I would hope he wouldn't be with somebody like that, because it's like she's a horrible person, but maybe, remember, he said people he dated before wanted him for his status or his money. So maybe he prefers that, because then at least he knows that's what they're there for. I don't know, but I hope he's not dealing with this heifer, because she's proven that she is very much a problem. So Shannon's back at her place. Amy's there. Amanda's there. They're trying to console her, because she did have an awful day. They brought over some pad thai for her. They're trying to figure out what's going on, what exactly, why were they there together. So they've got these theories. And they found out that the reason they were there is about some donations they gave, so they're clearly not dating. So that's good. They also are trying to figure out, okay, if he knows you're not gay, why is he holding this against you? Like it was a part of the ruse. Like, why is he still upset about it? This? Doesn't make sense. So then they start thinking about, okay, with the mom, like, well, how did she die? So they Google her, but all they see is an obituary, but it does say she died from a wasp. So now it's seeming like, okay, maybe he dumped her because of that. But then he should have just dumped her right after the incident in the hospital, right? That's what I would think, because then you realize it's too much at that point. So then the mom comes over, and Marie, and she's talking about vibrators. I can't with her. She's a trip. Shannon winds up telling about her dating James, and she wants the full story, you know? And so finally she says it all started with rats. So all of them are like, rats? Elaborate. What are you talking about? So she was living in that warehouse with the artist, and they had a huge rat problems. So they would have cats that they would, basically kill most of the rats. Well, when James came and took over the place, because he was starting to build up his, profile in business and real estate, once he found out they were buying, like, the cats were killing him, he went and bought 50 cats from a shelter and then released them in the building, thinking, okay, it's going to kill all the rats. Well, here's the problem. It made dogs come to the building because they wanted to chase the cats. So now you got an issue with the dogs. You've got rat steal, and they killed most of them, but you got 3 different animals there now, right? So one of the dogs had gotten bitten by a rat, and its paw was infected, and she had told James that he needed to pay for it. He needed to take her to a vet and pay for it, right? Because this happened because of what he did. So they went to the vet, he paid for it, and while they were there, afterwards he asked her out on a date, and she went. So Shannon's is upset, and rightfully so, because it's like, your mom knew more about this family than what she said, right? And it's like they're always pestering her to find out every little detail about her life, but then she feels as if she doesn't have to tell everything about hers. And that's what irks me with people. So she's like, he was over here and he was talking about his mom, and you acted as if you didn't know his mom was dead. And she said, I didn't know she died. She said, I broke up with him, and then a year later he married Elena, and I never saw or heard from him again. So I had no idea that she died until Declan said that. And so they're like shocked that Marie broke up with James, right? because, you got to think she's always saying about, to get a billionaire, you got to do this and do that. It was like, kind of like, wait a minute. Why did you break up with them? She said, I tried to love him, but I couldn't. And they said, well, why? And she said, because I fell in love with the vet tech who was there when they took the dog in, meaning her father, Jason. And that's who she loved, and she chose him. And Shannon was just like, oh, but now even more so, again, she wants to fully understand why he dumped her. And Amanda's not coming up with any more information online about Elena. So that's not working out. And now they're thinking, what if Amanda yells out Jessica Coffin? And that makes Shannon choke. They had to perform the Heimlich on the poor baby. So the reason Amanda yelled it out is because she figures, hey, if she's about the gossip, she's high society, she's going to know the story, right? She should, because there's got to be something more to this. So she reaches out to her on Twitter. I don't know if this is going to be smart. I feel like it'll be more ammunition you're giving that girl. I don't know, but she reaches out. They wind up handing out Gatorade, Amanda and Shannon, at this 10K run in Boston. And Shannon goes inside, and we find out this is actually an Anadark building. So that's who's actually sponsoring this 10K run. Which, I don't know, maybe they didn't tell her that on purpose, because she might have been like, oh, I'm not going to go. But I'm like, then again, she might have been willing to go anyway because she wants so many answers. So anyway, she goes inside to use the restroom, and she winds up seeing Declan and his brother Andrew. They don't see her. She can see them. So she was able to get close enough to kind of eavesdrop on their conversation. And she's listening, and now remember, Andrew has the wasp allergy as well. But Andrew lives in a fucking bubble, okay? Andrew don't really want to go outside. He stays away. Like, he lives his life with a lot more precautions than our girl Shannon does. And Shannon kind of started thinking about Andrew and how, maybe she should live her life like that. Maybe that is the safer bet, So she's listening to their conversation. Andrew's saying, you're a fool for breaking up with her. Just because that's what Dad wanted. Declan's like, I didn't break up with her because of Dad. And Andrew's like, well, then you're even more dumber than I thought. And she's like, okay, loving Andrew. Andrew's like, she's the only girl you've ever fallen for. Like, that doesn't make sense. Then she hears her dad, Jason, come into the room. Andrew excuses himself, and so it's just Jason and Declan. And Declan says, how are you? And Jason's like, let's not do the whole pleasantry thing, He tells him, how really bad he hurt Shannon, and put him in the same space as Steve, because he never liked Steve, He knew he was no good. He knew he was just an opportunist and never liked the way he treated his daughter. And he's like, but when I saw the two of you together, it was different. And it's just the idea that you would treat her the same. It just, ugh. And as this conversation is happening, she has a flashback to a conversation that she had with her mom. And her mom was talking about alphas and beta alphas. No, I said that so wrong. Beta alphas. And her mom had said, get you a beta alpha. That is the perfect person. She said a lot of people think that Jason is just, a pushover, this and that. But if you ever do anything to someone he loves, you see an alpha that could destroy any other alpha in the world. That's who you want. And as she's listening to this conversation, she realizes her dad, yeah, he's that dude. Because he was very much about having his daughter's back. Very much about telling this guy, you fucked up. And you did her dirty. And she didn't deserve that shit, And I like it. Especially the fact that he did the ultimate insult of saying you did her like Steve, because we know Steve is shit, right? So I was like, good dad. So as she's eavesdropping, yes, she does what we think she's gonna do. She fucking falls. And so both Declan and her dad are looking at her like, what the hell? So her dad tries to help her up, and then eventually her dad is like, I'll let you two talk. She blurts out, about what Andrew also said, because Andrew had said that he thinks Amanda's hot. And she's like, so Andrew thinks Amanda's hot? And he says, eavesdropping. And he says, you really are good at, you really would be good with the corporate espionage. And he's starting to shut down. She can see it. And she says, I heard you and Andrew talking. She said, and then you said something about 10 years ago, something happened, and his face goes white. But he doesn't say anything. And so she puts her hand over his mouth and she can feel his vibration. So even though he looks cold, there's a lot of feeling going on with him. And he says it's not important, and she wants to know, like, what happened? She's like, what else did your father say? And then they get interrupted by Jessica Coffin. She, of course, is like, we need to do our photo ops. And he's like, I will talk to you later. He was annoyed that Jessica kind of came over there. But I'm like, you're not even giving her any information anyway. You're not telling Shannon anything. Eventually, he was able to get rid of Jessica because they sponsored the event, but he made a comment to her. He said something like, how's your businesses doing? And she storms off. So that means money wise, everything isn't glittering with her ass either. That gets her to leave. So then afterwards, Andrew comes in, running in, saying, get it away from me, get it away from me. It looks like it could be a fly. It might be something else. And he says, to her, my father was right. And let's just leave it at that. And he runs to go and help Andrew. And she, of course, is left there completely heartbroken. So when she saw him at the event, Declan, it had been about a month at that time, at that race. Now we're going to fast forward an additional 3 weeks. And every day she's having to go to a gym because she's doing these mystery shops with gyms. And so it's actually toning her up. And so Josh, the coworker, and he handles the tech as well there, he tells that. He's like, damn, you're actually toning up. But she's in pain, though, as well. So then we find out Josh, apparently, he's got a boyfriend named Cameron. And Greg is going to be... What is he going to be doing? Greg is going to be doing something. He wants to have a discussion with her because James McCormick has some request. Okay? So she's like, okay, fine, whatever. I'll do it. What do we need to talk about? So I'm curious if I don't know if they're going to acknowledge the past that he had with the mother. I don't know how their meeting is going to go. We'll see. But she's supposed to be going to the Fort. That's the name of the hotel. So we're going to see how that's going to play out. Also, the previous day, Amanda had did a mystery shop with her mom, Marie, and Marie had gotten this dildo which had like an anal probe, all kind of shit on it, and it had the letter J on it for Jason. And Greg walks in because they're talking about it, and he thinks it's a vacuum, and they kind of have to let him know, yeah, that's not a vacuum, Jason. I'm like, why the mom didn't take the shit with her? She leaves it, and I think she left it in old girl's bag, Shannon. I'm like, why the fuck is you leaving that in her bag? You should have left that in your own bag to take that shit home. Like, No one needs to see their parents' sex toys. Shannon tried to switch with Greg, so she wouldn't have to take the turd mobile to this expensive high end hotel, the Fort. But he said he had to take his mom to physical therapy. So I'm like, nah, he just don't want to deal with. He doesn't want that car. So anyway, she pulls up. Valet gets her car. The guy, his name is Guido. He has this like semi-serious look, puts her in the mind of Declan. His voice is sexy, makes her a little wet. She almost falls. It's been raining, and this is real Marlboro at this place. And so she catches what's his name? The Guido guy catches her from falling. She's okay, and he says, "Miss," and she says it's Jacoby, and she told him, you can leave the car on the corner and maybe someone will steal it. So the guy's like, I don't think I could do that. I can't conspire with you. I'd probably lose my job. So she says, it was worth a try. So then she gives him a $5 bill and he looks at it like it's something weird. And she's thinking like, what? Is that not enough? So she gives him another five. And then the other valet guys are like, just take the money, dude. So she turns to walk off and boom, she falls on her ass. And Guido says Shannon. And in her head, she's like, wait a minute. I did not tell him my first name. So he helps her out. Her bag is falling. And out comes what? The fucking vibrator. And so Guido makes the comment, I don't think I've ever gotten this type of tip before. So she grabs it from him, puts it back in the bag, and she's like, oh my gosh, this is starting off so crazy already. She hasn't even made it into the damn hotel. So then a guy named Mike gets her luggage. He's going to bring it in for check-in, and that all goes smoothly. Elevators, I can't talk today. Elevators are extremely high tech, but it runs great. She gets up to her room, she tips the Mike dude, and he leaves. And then she has this whole list of stuff that she's supposed to do. So she's got to do, it's a pretty thorough checking that she's going to have to do with this mystery shop, right? So one of the things she has to do is create a problem to see how fast they're going to respond. So they give some suggestions of what she can do to the toilet to make it to where she would have to call for maintenance and see how fast they'll come. Well, she go ahead and calls maintenance because this isn't something that's foreign to her. She's done other hotels and this is something they have you do. So she goes ahead and gives them a call. It's pretty standard. So then she hears this buzzing sound coming from her bag. It's the vibrator. But now when she kicked it, the thing, it just went into overdrive and it's like hyperspeed. The power button isn't turning it off. She can't take the batteries out because it requires a screwdriver. So then there's this knock on the door and it's like, maintenance is here. So she goes into the bathroom. She's trying to go ahead and make it to where there's an issue with the toilet. But the fucking, but the vibrator, she had to put that down on the counter. And now it's just vibrating ferociously. And it drops in the toilet. And so she's got to get it out. She hears the door opening. The maintenance person is coming because they've clearly used their key. And they come in and no, it is not a maintenance person. It is Declan. And he says, we have got to stop meeting like this. So Declan is dressed like a maintenance dude. And we find out he got this idea from Amanda. So Amanda had made the comment the previous day that CEOs needed to go undercover. She's like, you need to see the ins and outs of how your hotel works. And she was trying to, it's funny because she was trying to get the vibrator out of the toilet. It's just so funny. Oh my gosh. So she winds up throwing it on the ground and she kicks it out the window because she opened up the windows when she first got there. And so now it's on the street and it's causing a commotion in the street. I said, oh my gosh. So of course she says to him, what are you doing here? Why are you dressed like that? And then he gives her the reasoning of Amanda's idea. And she's like, that doesn't make sense. He winds up screaming out that he was an idiot. And he kisses her. And then he kisses her again. But she's like, no, I want answers. So eventually he tells her, he said it was something about the fact that she had gotten on Jessica's radar and that Jessica was tweeting about her and it was making it difficult for him. She's like, nope, that's not it. That doesn't make sense. That wasn't my fault. She's like, try again. So then he says it's because of the allergy. She says, he was like, you didn't tell me about it and you should have. She said it was our second date. She's like, that is something you can wait and you tell someone later on. It's not like I wasn't going to tell you. It's just that it was the second date. That's it. And he's like, well, that's not good enough. You still should have told me. And Shannon's like, so you're allowed to determine what's a good enough excuse? And he says yes. I say, well, damn. Shannon kind of lets him know that she knows there's some type of secret from 10 years ago and she wants to know what the hell it is. He's still not telling her. He just starts to shut down and she's like, fuck this. I don't need this. I'm going to go to the bar and have 2 drinks. Because on her list of things to do, she's supposed to go to the ice bar and have 2 drinks. So she leaves. So she gets to the ice bar and it's just what it says. It is a bar made of ice. She goes and sits down and guess who's behind doing the bartending? Andrew. And Andrew spills everything. We found out everything. So they are there because Amanda came into the office the previous day demanding to know the whole story of what happened to their mom. Because they were like, this has got something to do with why he broke up with Shannon and I want the answers. So then Andrew, keep in mind, he's giving her like 2 shots of like bourbon, I want to say, at a time. So he's telling her the story, but as he starts to tell her the story, she's kind of sobering up. So then there was also a guy named Pete there sitting and he was trying to hit on her and Andrew got pissed off at him and told him to leave and call security to get his ass out. And Andrew told her, listen, I've never seen my brother happier than with you. Declan and happy never went together in the same sentence before you. And then he starts to tell the story of what happened. So, him, his mom, and his brothers, they were on a trail. And the mom got stuck by a wasp like 2 times. And old boy, Andrew, I think he got stuck like maybe 3 times. Well, they didn't know that Andrew had an allergy to wasp. They didn't know this at the time. He never had an attack. They had no clue. So the mom, of course, always kept an EpiPen in her purse, but again, she only had 1. So when she heard Andrew wheezing, the mom knew, fuck, this is an allergic reaction. And so she told Declan when he tried to inject her, she pushed it. She said, your brother. And so he was able to save his brother's life, but unfortunately his mom died. The father, James, still blames him for it, says he made the wrong decision. Said you should have saved your mother. So that's got to be hard for Declan. First of all, the fact that he even had to do that, right, was hard enough. But then the fact that your father is telling you you made the wrong decision and never really forgiving you for that. And then poor Andrew has got to be feeling like shit because your father's basically saying you should have been dead. That's fucked up on so many levels. And if he's carrying this, it's like, oh my gosh, the poor child. But at the same time, she carries 2 EpiPens and now she carries 3 at her mother's insistence, So she's taking the precautions, but that's super sad. That is sad. And then Andrew gets called away, so he's got to go. So then she decides, you know what? She's got to eat at the restaurant, so she's going to go in. One of the things was to eat at the restaurant without a reservation. So she goes. She was able to get a table, no issues. And then guess who comes out? James McCormick. Unfortunately, the liquor is in her. And so the first thing she says is, how could you blame Declan for your wife's death? I love it. I say, yes, come straight out. Just say it. So everything comes out. She says, let's make a toast to fathers. And he says, I'll toast to that. And she says, no, to my father, because he would never do anything like that. Blame a child for something like that. So he says that after they're talking, he realizes she tells him who her mother is. And he says, I knew you looked familiar. And he does acknowledge some truths. And he says that that is something he said to Declan for the past 10 years. He's like, I don't mean it. It's just when I get upset, you know? But you've never apologized to him. You're still saying that shit to him. That's not cool. So whenever you get mad, you say stupid shit like nah, That's how you fucking feel. And that's fucked up. But that's a way to control him too, right? To keep that guilt in him. That's a way to control him. So that's shitty. And she, of course, says to him, so you wish Andrew wasn't here? And he says, absolutely. No. That's not what I meant. It's just that I did everything possible to prevent it, and there was still nothing I could do in the end. You know? And she says, well, it sounds like you're just mad at yourself, and you're taking it out on your kids. And that's pretty awful. So then the Guido guy comes up and says, Dad, and we find out Guido is actually the third brother, Terrence. I thought it was just the two, Declan and Andrew, but there's three of them. So I'm like, oh, okay. So that explains why he said Shannon. Yeah, he knew, he'd heard about her. Even though she had never met him before. And so Terrence helps her because she's drunk. She's stumbling a little bit. She didn't eat because she was just going off on him. She ate a little bread. That was about it. So Terrence takes her up to her room and he tells her he's happy to meet her. We find out, he's heard such good things about her, so he was happy to meet her. Amanda had set this whole thing up with all three of them because she said she thought it was a good idea for CEOs, to know what's going on with their companies. And she had heard about other people doing that, and so she felt like they needed to do it as well, and they agreed. So Terrence got her inside. She was good. She winds up falling asleep. I ain't gonna say she passed out. That's what she did. She passed out. She wakes up to knocks on the door saying it's room service. She's sitting there thinking, did I order? I can't remember. So she opens the door and it is Declan. She slams the door. He's like, please open the door. You haven't eaten. Terrence told me. Andrew said you didn't eat either. He's like, I've got a filet mignon, some type of special mashed potatoes, and cheesecake. Now that got her ass because she was hungry. So she opens the door. She's like, fine, but if you come here, we're going to have to talk. And he's like, I just want to make sure you're okay. They told me you've been drinking. And that some guy was hitting on you. And then that you went off on Dad because he was being an asshole. And I just wanted to check on you. And she's like, that's fine, but you need to start talking. Because in her dream she was somewhere in the Antarctic running from a bee. And he says, in your dreams, they're usually something that you're trying to work out. And she says, what do you dream about? And he says, you. So he says his dreams are like still shots. His brothers tell him he's not human. He's like, that is not normal. And then everything spills out. So his dad had been saying to him that it wasn't a good idea to be with Shannon because if you have children, they're at higher risk of getting the allergy as well. And he's like, you're going to spend a lifetime of pain for something that you can't control, And he says, and I tried to do it. I tried to let go. He was like, but I can't be without you. It just doesn't work. I'm miserable. He's like, you bring me so much joy. And he told her he was falling in love with her. And she says, when did you know? And he was like, I guess that first time she went off on the dad in the board in the conference room is when he knew he was falling for her. And so then of course they have this kiss, and then they have their nice fuck. And we'll say it was more of a like a making love. It was nice. It was really sweet how they described it. So it's the next morning, and they're being all lovey-dovey in bed, and her phone rings. It's Amanda. And Declan says in the background, he's kind of like trying to find out who is it. And Amanda screamed, when she heard Declan's voice. And it was so loud, Shannon had to take the phone away from her ear. And through the phone, Declan picks it up. And so they sit there and they have a conversation, Amanda and Declan. And so when she gets back to the phone with Amanda is calling because some shit's gone down. So Marie, her mom, got into it with Jessica Coffin on Twitter and basically revealed that she wasn't a lesbian, that she was doing this, for Mystery Shop. She was staying in this character. Well, for the job, that's not good, because this huge company, the credit union, is now calling for Shannon's head. They want her gone. So she's giving her a heads up to let her know you're going to get a call from Greg. So she gets off the phone with her, and Greg calls her and fires her. She gets in the shower with Declan. Declan says, it's going to be okay, I promise. She's like, you can't promise that. He said, yes, I can. It's going to be okay. So he offers her a job as some type of associate marketing director, something like that. And she's freaking out about her student loans and all this type of shit. But she felt like he was being patronizing to her. But it wasn't like that. He told her, I wanted to hire you when you walked into that meeting after the toilet incident, And he's like, I wanted to hire you then. So she's getting offended, and I'm like, stop. As she's starting to let it process, she realizes this actually sounds pretty good. And so she says, are you hiring? Why would you want to hire me? He says, because you're smart. She says, that's not good enough. She's like, people normally get jobs like this because of who they know. He said, exactly. So then, of course, they're touching on each other. And he was like, how about I give you an orientation right now? So Shannon's picking up her things from the office. It's very emotional. We find out Carol, her sister, is actually going to take her job. So this kind of works out really great for Carol. The parents can help when she has to do maybe odd hour mystery shops or stuff like that. But that's not going to be all the time. So it works out pretty good. Josh, who is the tech, tells her that there's this ruckus going on social media. And so apparently Jessica Coffin's Twitter DMs have been exposed. Someone hacked her. And all of her sources for getting information, they are out, and she is getting dragged for filth on all the platforms. And so Steve had been the one messaging her, telling her shit. And so she feels vindicated because she really, she knew it was him. And she knew this woman wasn't any good. So it's like she's getting her just due. So I'm happy. So when she walks out the building, Declan's waiting there with the limo. And Josh is like, well, hell, if this is what you do walking out to, you'll be fine. So they go to the limo, and Amanda comes over through the parking lot. She jumps out so they can have their cry. And Declan is kind of like, what are y'all doing? Y'all having dinner tonight? They're like, no, but this is the end of an era. She's not going to really come here anymore. Like, this is the end. And he just kind of stayed back and just kind of let her have it. And so when they left there, she's going to leave and she's going to do an interview with James McCormick because she still hasn't decided on the job if she's going to take it or not. She needs to make sure she can get along with James. So her and Declan are in the elevator. They're having a conversation, and they were talking about her mom. Her mom, she made the comment her mom dumpster dives, but she doesn't really mean it like that. And he starts thinking, oh my God, are your parents okay? Do they need some help? And she's like, no, they're fine. My mom just likes cheap things and things that can be reused. She's just like that, you know? That's why I have so many deodorants, because when it's triple coupon day, she goes insane. She also has a bunch of sex lube as well. And so, of course, that's when the door opens and James is on the other side. He, of course, catches that last part. Declan just looks at his dad and says, make her take the job. Like, not even playing. So then James and Shannon walk off and they go in the office and she wants to know. No, James is asking her, why are you not taking the job? Like, what's making you say no? And she says, I just don't want to fully depend on him for everything, you know? It's like mixing business and life. I just don't want to do that, you know? And he says, Declan's convinced that you'll be great. And he says, Declan is the one that's going to take the most of the risk. He says, he's putting everything into you, and that could be wiped away in a second. And so she asked him, well, why do you want me to take the job? And he says, because Declan wants you to have it. She says, not good enough. He says, maybe it's my karma for Marie. She says, not good enough. Why? He says, you're different from all the other women he's ever dated. I don't like people kissing up to me. I don't want that in a daughter-in-law. And then she goes, I'll do it. So he's looking at an old picture of the kids and their mom. Declan's about 12. And they're all on the beach. And he gets kind of sentimental. And my thing is, I just hope he stops bringing up that bullshit to Declan and stops blaming him. Like, that bullshit needs to stop ASAP. She's taking the job. Her salary's going to be double what it was. The benefits package itself is like a year's worth of salary. So she didn't even negotiate because she was beyond happy with it. She gets a call from her mom. Well, a text, I'm sorry, at first. And so she messages her mom and she lets her know, I'm signing my paperwork. I took the job. And her mom's like, we got to celebrate. And she's so excited. And then Declan messages her to meet him at the limo. And when she comes out, he's got these long stem roses, 2 EpiPens. And he says, will you be my marketing director or whatever it is? And she, of course, says, I will. So we fast forward about 7 months. It's now around Christmas time. She gets a phone call from Greg, which I wish she wouldn't answer. But apparently she still does some mystery shops for them. And she does them on behalf of her sister sometimes. So Greg, apparently there's a Santa that's called out and they need he's going to be Santa and he needs an elf. And Carol can't come because she says the kids are sick. I personally have been like, I don't give a fuck. I wouldn't have answered the phone. I would have stayed right there with my boo in our little bubble, enjoying ourselves. He was decorating a tree. Declan was like, fuck that shit, you know? But she agrees to do it. And I'm like, oh gosh, this is probably going to be a mess. She gets there and it takes Greg a hot minute to get ready. She's dealing with the psychotic parents, psychotic kids just running around. The mom keeps yelling about there's an app. They were told they were going to have to wait. Eventually, Greg comes out. He does play a good Santa. He plays it at the community center and it's paid off because he's a really good one. We find out that these people paid $79 to be first. She thinks that's so unfair. because the people who couldn't afford it, they've got to wait forever. But I'm like, hey, it's a capitalistic society. I don't know what else, girl, what do you want us to say? That's just how it works. There's this one woman yelling at her kid. It's just a lot. It's just too much. So then we fast forward a couple of hours. We've hit a problem. The Santa that was supposed to come to relieve Greg is not coming. He apparently got into it in the garage. It's too many people, and he said, fuck it. He left. So it also looks like there are people accepting cash, which is not above board because everything is supposed to go through the app. So it does look like some possible embezzlement shit's going on. So they've got to document it because remember, this is a mystery shop. Greg's got to take his wife to a doctor's appointment. She's a cancer survivor, so she's got to go. So they beg Declan to do it, but Declan says he doesn't care about the money. Greg says, name your price. He says, stop calling Shannon from mystery shops forever. And Greg agrees. I think Shannon should have been the one to ask this. She should have put her foot down. He shouldn't have had to do it. But because she won't stop overextending herself for this fucking company that let her go because she was sticking to the script, I just feel like I would have wanted her to do it, but she didn't have the fucking balls to do it. Because if she's doing mystery shops for her sister Carol, she's going to always do them. So it is what it is. I'm happy he said something because she don't need to be doing this. She's a fucking executive now at another job. All her focus needs to be put over there. She does not need to be doing this bullshit. You know? Carol, figure the shit out. You need to do it, figure it out. That's what the fuck our girl had to do. When people called out, when people didn't do it, guess what? Shannon had to do those mystery shops herself. So Carol's got to have the same energy, you know? Shit, other than that, it ain't gonna get done. So I'm glad that's over with for her, cause look at the bullshit she dealing with right now. These annoying parents, these crazy kids, like she's dealing with a bunch of bullshit and roping her fucking man into it because she answered that fucking phone call. You know what I mean? Ugh, screw that crap. That was my little rant. But then she tells Declan she's gonna bring the elf out because it can be considered probably slutty, sexy outfit, elf outfit. She'll bring it home, and she tells him she wants him to bring home the Santa outfit. And then she hears her mother go, "Oh, that's me and your father's favorite game." I said, I can't with this woman. So now Declan, he's a Santa. Within 5 minutes, it's trending on Twitter. Hashtag Hot Santa, blowing up. Now people are coming just to see Hot Santa. There's a photographer. He's speaking Russian. He's being real aggressive, and we find out Declan speaks Russian. Declan's going off on him, and then Declan takes and reaches for him, drags him, and they have their little back and forth, and they wind up having a little fight. The guy headbutts Declan. But again, all this shit wouldn't have happened if she would have picked up that goddamn phone. But anyway, I digress. So we find out after they subdue the guy, this guy's been taking money for pictures, like $50 or something like that. He's been charging people and promising these pictures on a CD. So it's just a whole bunch of bullshit going on. So then what happened? Her mom's there. I want to say, who else? A few other people have all come. And there's a bunch of women in line too. And they don't have any kids either. They just want to sit on Hot Santa's lap. So then they get through some folks. Agnes shows up and she's actually helpful. Her mom, Marie, had canceled the yoga class for the day. And so Agnes was helpful in trying to get the kids in and out and all that good stuff. So then she looks up and she sees Josh in line and she gets pissed off because she's like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "Oh, we're here for Hot Santa." She's like, "Hot Santa is Declan." And he says, "Oh." And he should have picked up the phone and been the elf. He works for that company. You know what I mean? Like, shoot. So eventually he takes her, Declan takes Shannon into like the employee break room, and they wind up having a nice hard fuck. And as they're leaving out, she's talking to him about speaking Russian, and she hears her mom say, "I told you we weren't the only ones that play KGB agent." And she's talking to, of course, her dad, Jason. But again, they make sure they keep it fresh. I am not mad at Marie and Jason. I am not. So after the banging session, they go out, and Carol shows up with the kids, and I'm just like, wait a minute, what the fuck? She didn't pick. She said that her kids were sick, but that was clearly a lie. So that pisses me off. I'm like, ugh. I knew I ain't like Carol. So then the oldest, Jeffrey, he tells Declan he wants a dad for Christmas. He said if it's not his dad, he just wants a dad. So Carol's crying and shit. I don't feel sorry for her because I'm still mad at her. But anyway, I do feel bad for the baby because they're affected by the choices, you know. So Declan just kind of tells him, I'll tell Santa. He said, I can't promise you that he's going to be able to do it because Santa isn't all powerful. He says, I can't be your dad. He says, but I can be an uncle, which I thought was so super duper sweet. So Declan gives him a hug. Jeffrey says, Uncle, I've never had an uncle. I've only had aunt. So he's so excited. And everyone, of course, looks at this like this is the sweetest thing. Then one of the mothers from the line comes back demanding the picture, saying she was scheduled for 4:45 with the sexy Santa and all this type of shit. And the new Santa is supposed to be there by 5 o'clock, along with a new elf. And her, Jason's there with Chuckles, and Chuckles got antlers on, strapped to his head, and so he winds up, this woman has these like strapped up heels, and so Chuckles of course pees on her. She kicks Chuckles, and he lands on Declan's lap, and then two German shepherds run after Chuckles. Whole fiasco. And then Josh is back there taking pictures, and her mom, Shannon's mom Marie, is like, oh my gosh, I was trying to get a family photo. That's why she invited everyone down. So Josh is like, don't worry, I got it. I think I got a great one. But he's going to send it to Best Family Photo Ever. And underneath it, it has, it's like this website for the most awkward family photos. And in it, there's her nipples out because she's been having that issue, Shannon, all day with her boobs popping, a nipple being popped out. So underneath the picture is the caption, "Jolly old Saint Nip." And that's how it ends. So then if you enjoyed this, the next book in the series is called Shopping for the Billionaire's Fiance. And you can just kind of keep going through the story. There's a lot of books in this series. But I really enjoyed it. It was sweet. It really was. The one thing I would have wanted would have been to hear Declan's POV. I would have loved that, especially in those moments where he was shutting down. I would have loved to have been reading his POV. That's really my only complaint about it, is that we didn't get his POV. And I felt like it could have done that, because even though the writing is good, it's very detailed, but I felt like I would have preferred a little bit more meat about Declan from his POV than what I got. But it was a good read. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's a good read. The way she describes things, it's very funny. But I just wish we had that element of Declan's POV, because I just love when books do it from both. Because it just seems so unfair when it's just one person's POV. I like at least two people. When you start getting me more than that, I get so happy it's ridiculous, because I just love it. But what did you all think? Drop down in the description, in the comment section, and let me know. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have those available, and the links are going to be available down below in the description section. Make sure you like and subscribe and share. And as always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.